What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Bischoff and Brown right here on the Detroit Lions podcast. He's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. We are back. Lions are 2-1, back on the right side of things. We kind of got the train back on the tracks, it feels like. We are jumping right in. Lions Cardinals review. Scott, my man, how are you?
I am doing very well. How are you?
I'm good. We got some technical difficulties out of the way here on this Wednesday evening, so I'm doing pretty well. And you can see that the lighting is starting to change. It's getting darker in here, so I might have to start adjusting my room a little bit as we start doing these shows. I won't right now, but change of the season and all that stuff, it's starting to mess with me a little bit. It's getting darker earlier, staying darker earlier in the morning as well.
Get yourself one of those fancy circle lights. I'm told that or at least the StreamYard screen says that if you get really good lighting, that you'll look really good. And I think that's bullshit. I don't think that's true at all.
No, I wouldn't look good with lights or makeup. Yeah, I'm not a tech guy by any means. I can clip football plays and talk about it, and that's about it. And messing with lighting to make myself better. That's why I got married at a young age, so I don't have to worry about looking good. She's stuck with me forever. Like, this is it. So we're good to go.
You peaked.
We're good to go. Yeah. Oh, I peaked many moons ago. So, yeah. But yeah, no, look, guys, we're back. Lions are back as well with the win on the road. Very good bounce back win. That opening drive.
Right? That's a huge victory.
It is, especially when you look at just kind of the outcome of where everything went as far as injuries, how well the defense played. Those first couple of drives from Detroit were really good. Like, that first drive was chef's kiss. I mean, they stuck to running the football. They didn't get too fancy and too cute. And it feels like they've got their identity back.
Yeah, so let's pan back to last Monday, 9 days ago. We did a video a little bit out of frustration about how they looked and how they lost, and how the loss came to be against Tampa. And generally speaking, we're not going to toot our horns, so to speak, too much. Mm-hmm. But, and maybe it wasn't all that difficult to see, but it was very obvious they went away from their identity, which is run heavy and attack the middle of the field in the intermediate range, which is something they just did not do against Tampa. They did not. Yeah. And that first drive, that's all they did, is they went heavy. You go 12 personnel, you go heavy, you run, and then you attack the middle of the field. You get Laporta involved a little bit. You get St. Brown on some digs, and boom, like a hot knife through butter, it's 7-0.
Yeah.
And that offense was great in the first half. I mean, it was awesome, and it was good for them to get back to the roots of what they do well, which is, scheme better than maybe some defenses do, run the ball heavy, and then play action kind of stuff around that. So I thought it was a great first half. Weird second half, great first half.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned the 12 personnel, because I mean, we talked about it, and I was pushing for it on Twitter a little bit with some of my film clips and breakdowns and things like that. And it's like, didn't see a lot of Brock Wright in the first 2 games of the season. Didn't feel like we saw a lot of Sam Laporta either. And it was like, hey, we got to start getting these guys involved. That's what made this team so, I don't want to say dynamic because they're tight ends, but that's what made them so dynamic in their own way. And it gave them this different identity from different offenses in the league. And we saw it early with Sam Laporta, and obviously the freak thing happened on the hook and ladder play, which was an awesome play call, but it was unfortunate because Sam Laporta got rolled up on and has now the low ankle sprain. Now, I think he'll be fine. I don't know if he'll play against Seattle, maybe in a limited fashion because they're coming into the bye week. Yep. But I mean, I think by, week 6, week 7, he'll be at full health again, hopefully, fingers crossed, and we'll be good to go. And he's back to kind of doing his thing. So that was, I think, really one of the big offensive injuries. And we're going to jump into injuries and how concerning they are. But just looking at the defensive side of the football, we've talked about it time and time again. Tyrion Arnold in phase. He's continuously in phase, and these little kind of ticky-tack fouls from the NFL in these reps. I mean, some of them he's fighting for position the same way the receiver is. Like, it to me was 50-50. And he called for PI a couple different times in this one. But any takeaways defensively for Detroit?
That defense looks pretty ferocious at times. The fact that Tyrion Arnold is in phase in some of it, I would say on most, if not all of the plays he's been in coverage, should tell. I mean, that's hard to do. So are you going to accept some penalties? Sure. Right now, he's a rookie. We all got to remember he's a rookie, but he does not look like he is getting beat all over the place at all. He's got great reactive athleticism to keep him in coverage. And it's just, I think he has to learn what the NFL is going to let go from a grabby standpoint and what they're not. I understand what you're saying. There was a play with him and Michael Wilson where he got called, and it's like he kind of he should have the opportunity to go get the ball too, right? But that's just there's a little bit of learning and understanding what the NFL wants to call or the things they're looking for. But the fact that he's staying in phase, in a good position in coverage with his body as with the receiver, I think is the most hopeful thing that we're seeing out of the secondary, with the exception of the way Brian Branch is playing.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like, do I want him stepping up and lighting up Trey McBride like he did in the fourth quarter? No, not really. Right. But you accept that because he's a dude, right? I mean, I'm just super hopeful that as long as the defensive line, and I thought in this game, I'm all over the place. In this game, I thought they did a phenomenal job of being incredibly disciplined with Kyler Murray, keeping him in the pocket, not over pursuing, not getting out of their rush lanes, not giving him places to go. And I mean, Kyler Murray, if I was a Cardinals fan, or at least as a person looking around and watching quarterback play, if you keep him in the pocket, even if he's clean, his feet are just awful. Like, he's so skittish. Yep. I know he can make every throw, but like the example I'm talking about is the pick he throws to Kirby Joseph. Mm-hmm. He's totally clean there. He doesn't really drive that throw. He leaves it hang in the air a touch, and he doesn't drive the throw because his feet are bad, and he's kind of off platform, and he just decides to just wing it and let it rip. There was no pressure there. So the Lions did a great job of not letting him get out of the pocket and run around, like the freak show that he is, the way he runs around and makes plays. They were awesome in that regard.
And when you look at it the week before of how he ran all over the Los Angeles Rams, it was like, man, Detroit could be in for a big, long day. Like, he might go off, and he didn't. You mentioned the interception. I still don't know why he decided to throw that ball, because like you said, he had time, and I don't know how, like, you didn't see Kirby Joseph over the top with that guy, like, and you didn't put it in a position for your receiver to really make a play. So,
I mean, that's Kirby's game. That's what he does.
Yeah, him as a single high safety, and even if he has split field responsibilities and he's the two high safety, his ability to just play over the top is phenomenal. And even away from that, the way he drives down the field and buzzes down the field to tackle or just make a play, he's so good for them. And I'm so glad that they have him with Brian Branch. And I can't wait for Melifonwu to get back. Yeah. Because I think that's an impact for them as far as what he can do in the flats, even as single high, even when he blitzes. But one thing I wanted to highlight, just kind of to finish off the defense, is just their run defense of how stout it is. I mean, it's going to be tough for Seattle to get going if Kenneth Walker cannot play. If it's Zach Charbonnet, I mean, he might break off a big run here or there because he's so strong, but their ability to stop the run with Aleem McNeil, who we'll see what happens. He's got the shoulder injury, but DJ Reader, Kyle Petco, Levi Ozarike, Obviously, Michael Brockers, we know he's done for the season. We'll talk on injuries here in a minute before we jump into the Seahawks game. But just, Hutchinson, Derek Barnes, Alex, I mean, they're so stout against the run, and they fit so well with the linebackers. And I know some people may not be on the train of Jack Campbell, but his ability to fit the run and scrape and just work through contact and all that traffic and still stick his nose in there, that is something that most linebackers won't do in this league anymore. And he does it consistently. And I just love the way that they stop the run. I mean, they're top 3 in run defense in the NFL right now. And you just look at the way that they do it. I mean, it helps them so much defensively. And it looks like, when you look at the defense in the grand scheme of things, it's like, yeah, they get torched at times through the air, but they really do have this bend, don't break mentality defensively. And the way that they stopped Tampa a couple times 2 weeks ago, this defense is legit. I mean, it just is what it is. They're legit. And Aiden Hutchinson
and the linebackers, I think it's not that it's easier to play, but when you have good defensive line play and they're disciplined and they're able to do their jobs, it makes it easier for a player like Campbell and any of the linebackers to work, right? That's been the problem in the past, like the Jared Davis years, where I remember Ashawn Robinson would just get bounced out of his gaps, and Davis is essentially in the same gap as Ashawn is, and it's like, so who are you going to blame there? You know what I mean? So I think they've done a fantastic job of defending the run and being a very dangerous defensive line. You're right; they're tied for 3rd yards per carry. They're giving up 3.6 yards per carry. They have given up 230 total run yards, which is tied for 4th in the NFL. They've given up 2 rushing touchdowns, tied for 9th. And they've given up 1 20-plus yard run in 3 games, right? So
it was a log of 21.
Yeah. So you're making teams have to beat you passing the ball. And like you said, they are going to give up plays here and there, but they're dangerous back there too. They have playmakers. So this matchup is going to be fascinating. I think we could talk about their offense a little bit in Arizona. They are just so dangerous running the ball, right? Like for you bettors out there, take both Gibbs and Montgomery's overs every week. And if you want to get cute, have them both score every week. There you go. There's your parlay for this week. They're just so dangerous with what they do. And especially when they want to really commit to it with the 12 personnel stuff and some of the more exotic run looks that they put out there. Obviously, that changes. The dynamic changes with Ragnow if he's out with the pec strain or the partial tear. Brutal injury. We'll see how long he's out. It could be. My guess is I hope it's just a couple of weeks. But Glasgow, this is one of the reasons why the Glasgow re-signing was such a big deal. Free agency was that he can play center at I think he can play center at a higher level than he plays left guard. I don't know what your thoughts are there, but I thought the offense was great. There were even the plays that they made, the St. Brown touchdown, Gibbs is wide open running underneath. You could have hit him for a touchdown there. There's so much. They missed JMO a couple times. He could have had a big day. Didn't need to. It is interesting. And I don't know if I say interesting in a good way, but the second half was bizarre. I want to say they had the ball 6 times. They punted 5. They threw a pick. So, they didn't need to score because they had Arizona's in a position where I think they had them, but that game got a little closer than it needed to be when Arizona made it 20-13. Still, great performance on the road. You go on the road, you play a good team, and you win like that. You should be very happy. Great job, 2-1. We're going to look back at the Tampa game and think, brutal loss. They really should be 3-0.
Yep, shoulda, woulda, coulda on that. And you mentioned second half. It's a great point. 5 punts, the pick. The pick was a simulated pressure where the backside linebacker blitzed in the play side defensive end to where Goff was going to throw, dropped into that mid hook, and he just must not have seen it or wasn't anticipating him to be there as quick as he was. But either way, I think the disgruntled part of the second half of maybe the fans' viewpoint is just simply we're expecting the Lions to pedal to the metal and stomp on somebody's throat. And
were we talking about the reactive athleticism and just how much they've turned over the secondary room? And we haven't talked about Ennis Rakestraw, second round pick. It takes what was the weakness of your team, and really, obviously it's being helped by your pass rush and that kind of stuff. But this is a damn good team, and there's talent and depth everywhere. I know just a little aside with just how I'm feeling about the secondary there. We can get into Seattle now. What do you think? What do you think Seattle poses? What's the biggest problem with this matchup? Because they've had the Lions number. They really have.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Geno thing, right? Like there's that whole element. For whatever reason, they've struggled against him, and they've just struggled against that Seattle mobile quarterback. They've shown this past week, obviously against Arizona, that they can contain a mobile quarterback and keep him in the pocket. But for whatever reason, they struggle against Seattle. But this is a whole new look on offense. I mean, it's not the Pete Carroll show anymore. They have Mike McDonald there. I look at just them like defensively. They run a lot of odd front stuff. So, you'll see a lot of 3-man fronts, 2-man fronts, with kind of like a stand-up backer or stand-up edge rusher, and then they'll maybe creep a backer on and off the line of scrimmage and give you kind of like a 4-man look, but it's not really going to be put as that. So they really mix and match their defensive line. And we, when you and I first started kind of doing a show together,
I know who you're going to talk about. I know it.
The one of the guys that we talked about that we both loved, specifically you, was, Boye Mafi. And he's starting to really turn into a fine player for them. And, they've obviously got the secondary pieces with, Devin Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen, and those guys are going to create some problems for them. But at the end of the day, like, I think the thing that maybe worries me just the most is DK Metcalf, the physicality that he plays with, the speed that he plays with. You would have to think he matches up against either Carlton Davis or Tyrion Arnold. And I like Carlton Davis, but man, that guy does not look for the football sometimes at all. He gets caught either staring at the quarterback or staring at the receiver. And it's not like find the ball, make a play. So that's what worries me. And then just obviously like Tyler Lockett, they're going to scheme something for him to get open deep down the field. And will they be in the right spots to stop those types of plays? But overall, like their offensive line doesn't worry me. I don't view too much like second level defenders wise, like Tyrese Knight, and their linebacking group. Like that doesn't really worry me all that much. So like I feel good about it. But the thing that worries me the most is the Lions' injury concerns of how many key players could be out for this game.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the story of this game is injuries for both teams. Tariq Woolen's awesome. Devin Witherspoon's awesome. Jackson Smith-Njigba terrifies me in this matchup.
Really?
He really does. It just, I think in the past, DK Metcalf has just kind of obliterated the Lions' defensive plan because of his physicality. Mm-hmm. And the Lions simply didn't have anybody who was up to it physically to press it because they want to play man, right? So how do you cover that guy? How do you man cover that guy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a tough ask, but they want to do that. So you hope that they can find a way to sort of mitigate his size and speed. But then it's, I'm with you with the Tyler Lockett stuff. He's still a threat. He's still a problem. But Jackson Smith-Njigba strikes me as that guy who's just going to move the sticks. There's going to be pressure. He's going to get open late, kind of, that kind of stuff. But you mentioned injuries. So I want to say Seattle's a different team without Kenny Walker as the running back. They are. Zach Charbonnet is a good running back, but he's not Kenny Walker level. Yeah. They have injuries on the edges of their offensive line. Kenny Walker's hurt, but these are the big ones. The big ones are Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy. I don't know if they're going to play. That's a huge loss for them. It just is. And especially for a team that wants to run the ball down your throat a little bit, that would be a problem for Seattle. For the Lions offense, I don't know that the Lions offense is going to shred Seattle's defense through the air because of the defensive back play and pressure that they can bring to Goff. I think that this game is going to be overwhelmingly won or lost based on what Detroit can do running the ball. And if they're missing rookie Byron Murphy, who's a dude, right? Yeah, and Leonard Williams, I don't know that you overcome that.
Right.
So to me, that's an invitation just to run the ball, run lots of power concepts. Kind of a little bit like what we saw in the first little bit of the first quarter against Arizona.
Yep.
So there's that component of things. Seattle's pass defense is awesome. They're first in the NFL. They're giving up 4.7 yards per attempt. Okay. We have to premise this though. This is who Seattle has played so far. Week 1, they were home to Denver against a rookie quarterback who really didn't threaten in any way. He threw 2 picks, Bo Nix. Yep. Week 2, they were at New England. It's Jacoby Brissett, and not a lot of weapons, right? In week 3, it was home against Miami against Skylar Thompson, and a banged up Skylar Thompson right away. Yeah. So it's like, are we really looking at that 3 games and thinking Seattle's this defensive monster, or are we just setting it aside saying they really haven't been challenged defensively, with the exception of the running that they gave up to New England? Antonio Gibson carried the ball 11 times for 96 yards in week 2, right? Well, Ramondre Stevenson had 21 carries for 81 yards and a score in week 2. So they gave up, I'm going to say they gave up around 200 yards rushing in that week 2 matchup in a low scoring game to New England.
Yeah.
The Lions can duplicate that. And one of the nice things about running the ball and running it so heavy is you're reducing possessions. So, it's nice to not give the ball to Seattle's offense. It's just a nice thing. So it's all kind of a bonus how it lines up.
And I'm glad that you mentioned, the ability to run the football and how the 2 key players of Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams possibly being out. I do wonder, teams obviously at certain points try to break tendencies. And I wonder, is this one of those where they just break tendencies and they just start blitzing? Because when I go to match quarters, where they've got, data pulled with Field Vision, which is a great app, and both match quarters and Field Vision, great places. You should check them out on Twitter. But the Seahawks, they only blitz 24.2% of the time. It's quite a bit, but it's not like the most in the league. The Vikings blitz way more than that. The Buccaneers blitz more than that. So it makes me wonder, do they put the trust in the pass defense, send 6, send 7, fill the gaps, and force the Lions to try to beat you either out in the perimeter where they may be limited because Sam Laporta might not be there. Brock Wright is the fill-in. Is that a threat in the perimeter game? Probably not. Tim Patrick, are those guys going to be threats? And can Amon-Ra and J-Mo get open enough if they're getting pressed by Tariq Woolen and Devin Witherspoon and those types of guys? So I think it's going to be a very interesting game of cat and mouse, and it's going to be a fun chess game. But I'm also glad that you mentioned the quarterbacks, because that's a great point. Jared Goff, obviously not a world beater. We know what we get out of him, but he's far better than any quarterback that they've played at this point in the season. And that's saying something through 3 weeks. So I think maybe J-Mo does have a big game. He didn't get used much in last week's game, so maybe it's a bounce back spot for him. And maybe it's a big spot for Tim Patrick. I mean, it's just one of those things where he's a bigger body and you can play him in line. He's a willing blocker. I would certainly think we see a lot more of Dan Skipper. We saw him quite a bit last week, and that was helping establish that run game. So I wonder, does he step back in here to help either pick up some of those blitzes and those types of things? It's going to be so interesting. I do expect the Lions to win the game, but again, I expected them to beat the Seahawks last year. So I don't know if I'm going to be right or wrong on that.
Well, Monday night on the road in Detroit with some edge, with some offensive line perimeter injuries. I think they have Charles Cross, but Abraham Lucas is out, has been out for a little while.
Yeah.
I think Durham Smythe. I don't know whoever is starting, whoever the other starting tackle is. I should know this, but there's a scenario. Who is it?
I believe it's number 75. No, number 78, Stone Forsythe.
I wanted to call him Durham Smythe, but he's a tight end. Stone Forsythe. Yep. That's who the guy was thinking about. Nice call. I can see a scenario where there's a lot of pressure on Geno Smith. I could see Hutchinson walking away from this game with a few more sacks. I could see whoever they deploy on the edge, and it sounds like they're going to go real heavy on that D-line or big. It sounds like, at least what Campbell said today, expected Pascal to get more reps in this game. He'll have opportunities too. So crowd noise is going to be a problem for Seattle. This is a tough place to play, but they have had the Lions number. So it always gives you a little bit of pause. Like, it just seems to be a matchup problem, but this is a very different team. The strengths of that defense are very different than what Seattle's seen in the past in Detroit. Right. So, can Arnold run with their receivers? Yeah, he can. Can Carlton Davis? Yeah, he can.
And it's going to be interesting too how the Lions kind of change and shape their roster, right? Like we saw them put Marcus Davenport and Derek Barnes on IR.
Yeah,
they've already signed Tim Patrick to the active roster, so he's probably going to be a permanent stay on the 53-man roster if he stays healthy. So you've pretty much got an open roster spot. And you would have to think they designate that for another pass rusher. And Mitchell Akude would be a guy that I would push for. I think he is better than James Houston as a true Sam linebacker, but I don't know if that's the direction they go. Do they go more, as you mentioned, heavy? Do they go Pat O'Connor, the veteran, for maybe this one-off matchup against Seattle? Or is it the undrafted kid out of Ole Miss, Isaac Ukwe? I think I'm saying that wrong, but do you go for him? So it's just one of those things. Like, they have options, and all three of those guys flashed in the preseason. And it's like, is it one of those where every 2 to 3 games they start kind of creating a rotation with those guys, and they're picking and choosing when they get those chances?
There are other alternatives. Yeah, we should probably talk about it for 2 minutes.
Yeah, as far as like getting a pass rusher, signing, or
because to me, the Lions are one of the best teams in the NFL. And if you were to find yourself a very reliable piece opposite Hutchinson, I think with what we've seen around the NFL, not that you ever think that the Lions are the best team in the NFC, but you could make that argument, right?
Oh, yeah.
What do the Lions look like if Trey Hendrickson is defensive end opposite Aiden Hutchinson? Right? Trey Hendrickson, he asked for a trade early this summer.
Yep.
He wanted out of there. He makes $14.8 million this year. He makes $15.8 million next year. The Bengals are so strapped for cash that I think it's one of the reasons why they couldn't sign Jamar Chase, is because they actually don't have enough actual cash. So if you present that owner with the opportunity to save around $27 million over the next 2 years, 2 seasons, with money that he'd already technically spent with a player who's asked to be traded anyway, it makes a lot of sense, right? Yeah. And then you're getting a player who turns 30. This is all speculative stuff, but there's a lot of this stuff that adds up. Hendrickson is going to turn 30, but he's perfect for what the Lions do. And he's the reason, the reason why they signed Marcus Davenport is because they wanted a player like Trey Hendrickson. If you look back in the past, Hendrickson was in New Orleans with Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn. So they know him, right? I think there's a lot of things that do add up there. I don't know what the cost would be. My assumption is that it wouldn't be, because it frees up some money for them to use in really important places. Maybe it wouldn't be as costly as we think, but it would be one of those moves where you're pushing your chips and saying, hey, for the next 2 years, injuries aside, we're making runs, right? The other one, and I don't know if he fits great, is Hassan Reddick. And right? So I don't know what that would cost. I know it's a mess right now with him holding out.
Yeah.
But you'd have to sign him longer term. That's why the Hendrickson seems to make more sense to me. Plus, it's like, I think they want a bigger presence anyway, and Hendrickson would be that. So those are the two where, if they decide that whatever they have isn't good enough, it's not unreasonable to think they make that kind of a move or try to.
I agree. I don't think Reddick would be the guy that they go for simply because of just how long he's running this whole thing out and not report. It just doesn't feel like the right fit. But absolutely on Hendrickson, I'd be down with that. And I don't know, I don't think they would go this route. I think they re-signed him, if I remember correctly. Khalil Mack, I don't think they would go that route. I think they gave him some fresh cash to stay there in Los Angeles with the Chargers. But the way that season's going for them with Justin Herbert being banged up and stuff, it just kind of makes me wonder, if he gets worse and worse as the coming weeks go and they get stuck with 1 or 2 wins, do they just kind of say, hey, we're going to reshape this, get more picks, and you trade Khalil Mack at the deadline or something like that,
That's the exact reasoning for Hendrickson, too, is they're 0-3. The Bengals are 0-3.
Right.
He's made it very clear, very loud and clear that he wants to win.
Yeah.
It's just going to get more, he's going to require more grease as the season wears on. He's already asked to be traded, right? So, there's some of that. But yeah, Khalil Mack, you need something.
Yeah.
Opposite Hutchinson. Right.
Yeah.
And it can't be practice squad guys who aren't going to help you that much. They need something.
Right.
To me, it's almost it's almost like throwing away an opportunity if they don't address it. Now, it's a lot more. It's easy for me to sit here and talk about it. It's hard to make a trade, but the scenario does exist where guys asked to be traded. They haven't started out great. They need money. There's a lot of things that add up. We'll see.
Yeah.
Figured we should talk about it.
Yeah. And one last player. Just because they're 0-3, we're looking at 0-3 teams, kind of a dumpster fire. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they are awful.
Yeah.
They might be worse than the Carolina Panthers, which is saying something. But, Roy Robertson Harris, kind of that bigger body, 6'5", affordable contract where you can get out of it after 2025. Not as much dead cap. So I just wonder, do they go after kind of that bigger 6'5", 280, 290 type of guy? And then I know he's got a role there. He's a starter there in Jacksonville. So it's not like you're going to be able to just get him for free, but it's interesting to consider. But if there's anything in-house, it's probably those practice squad guys I said. Or James Houston, it's time to step up. This is why we've been keeping you around, and it's like, hey, it's your time now. So,
and it can be a combination of both, right? Like you could elevate practice squad guy and say you are edge setting defensive end in situations on 3rd and long. We'll bring in James Houston because he can clearly win in some ways. But to me, he hasn't looked the same since recovering from that really bad fracture. So, but still, you need somebody. We'll see how it works out. We got to talk about Ragnow's injury. I think we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but how does that impact things? Glasgow goes to center. Who plays left guard? Is it Ayasika?
That's the guy I would go with. Unless they really think Michael Neese is the guy, which I don't feel confident about. I like what I saw from him at times, but maybe to start this week against Seattle if they're banged up, okay. That gets you to the bye week, but I don't feel confident with him against Dallas. So I don't know. I think you're probably right with Awasika. Is it Colby Sorsdale? I don't think so. He doesn't play on the left side very often. He's more of a right side kind of guy.
Yeah. Yeah. It seemed like they wanted to train him as a tackle, and I think the guard stuff with him might not be a thing, but that's going to be a big deal on Monday.
Is the kid from Boston College, is he ready to go?
I think he's still on NFI.
Yep, he is. But
I don't know.
Is there more there in-house to where, okay, you play Awasika this week, and then next week you got kind of 2 weeks to figure out Mahogany? I don't know what they're going to do. It's
a bummer because that was the so much of the love for Mahogany in the pick was, okay, in the scenario where Glasgow does have to play center for a game or two, I think Mahogany could be ready to go pretty damn quick.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine he's anywhere near physically ready to go.
No.
But having said that, I'm not sure what his status is right now anyway. Right.
And he wouldn't make an immediate impact even if he was to go, because like you mentioned, football shape and condition and the strength and just being in sync with Taylor Decker and Graham Glasgow. I mean, that's going to take some time. So you're probably going to have to go with one of those veteran guys. And again, we don't know who it's going to be. I don't know if they keep Graham at guard and do they bring up Kingsley Aguikong? I don't know. I mean, I liked him coming out of Florida. His snap-to-step quickness was really impressive.
Yeah.
And he was really aggressive, but I just don't know if that's the move to play a rookie undrafted center. Maybe it is. Maybe that's a diamond in the rough for them.
It could be. I just think with bye week coming, maybe Ragnow, I'm sure Ragnow is telling them right now, I'm playing this week because that's but maybe you have to help him save him from himself a little bit. And hey, here's a couple weeks for you. This week, bye week next week, week 6 comes. Let's hope let's hope the rest helps. But, who knows? With Ragnow, you just never know. That guy is tough as nails. It's just the injuries are a problem. Yeah.
It is. And it's one of those where I think everybody had that conversation of like, long term, is he going to be here in the next year or two? Because it does not feel like it. It just does not. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
And the McNeil thing seems like he's more day to day than it looked.
Right.
That was an ugly looking play. But if he's back and he plays this week, that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
That's a very big thing for them. Yeah, and they'll be able to make Seattle a bit one-dimensional, which is I think what they've done to everyone. This. So
even if you had them in a limited fashion, I think that's, especially defensively, that's far more important than not playing at all. So
yeah.
If you get 20 snaps out of them, 25, okay, cool. If you can keep them to under 50 or around 50 snaps, okay, you get them for half the game, perfect.
Yeah.
But it might end up hurting you more than it is helping you. I don't know. I mean, it all obviously depends. So
yeah. And then it's a little early in the week, and the extra day doesn't help us as far as information goes because we don't totally know. But the way Campbell talked, it seemed like the day-to-day stuff was a very promising outcome. I think Barnes will be out. My guess is 6+ weeks.
That's what I was thinking. That was a bad shot. And
yeah. Yep. So injuries are piling up. I think they got away with one. They got lucky with Laporta with it being a low ankle sprain. He'll be good. Even if he misses this game, he'll be ready week 6 at 100%.
Hell, they got lucky with Brian Branch. I mean, that head-to-head was, that was bad. That was brutal.
It was. And I think you get fortunate with Amon-Ra 2 weeks ago with the quad injury. That could have been bad too. So, as much as we're talking injuries, both teams have injury issues. I feel good about the matchup, but I felt good about the matchup against Seattle in the past. And like you said, they've come out of nowhere and it's just been like, wow, we'll see. I just think that this is a very different team than the Lions have been in the past.
Yeah.
And I could see breakout game I could see Terry Arnold with a pick in this game. I could easily see.
I love it.
It's coming.
Love it.
Right. It's coming. It is.
Yep. No, and we'll see. Again, it's going to be Monday night. Hopefully you guys are there. They're back in black, blue helmets, all the fun stuff. So we'll see how it goes. I can't wait. I mean, but yeah, I don't have anything else. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, we're good.
I think we touched it all. So
we're good.
You guys, of course, can do us a solid by rating, reviewing, and subscribing to the Detroit Lions podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all other podcast platforms. I promise next time I'll turn some freaking lights on. And of course, you guys can follow us on Twitter or X at Russ NFL Draft, at Bischoff_Scott. Enjoy Lions Seahawks Monday night. He's Scott Bischoff. I'm Russ Brown. We will be back next week for Bischoff and Brown on the Detroit Lions podcast.